everybody, welcome back to Claudia's Math Classroom. Today we're going to talk some more about factoring trinomial expressions, quadratic expressions of the form ax squared plus bx plus c where a is not equal to 1. So just to recap some of the things we've been doing in previous videos, if we have something like this, let's see. We're going to factor that directly. We're going to go straight to our two brackets. We're going to say, okay, we need two numbers that multiply to make 8 and that add to make 6. Now that's going to be 2 and 4. Minus 2 minus 4 give us minus 6 when added, and when multiplied they give us that sign there. We know therefore they're the right numbers, and we just write out our factors. Okay? Then when we get into ones where a is not equal to 1, then we have to decompose the middle term. So let's take this one as an example. And we did this one in a previous video, but I just want to recap how this works. Okay, so when a is not 1, the first thing you do is ask yourself if there's something in common to all the terms. Since there isn't, what we're going to do is we're going to take these two numbers and multiply them and get 36. Now what we need is we need two numbers that multiply to make 36 and that add to make 13. And just like in the other examples, we're going to start by listing pairs of numbers that multiply to make 36. And we're going to ask ourselves whether those numbers add to make 13. Now these definitely don't. So we go on to another pair of numbers that multiplies to make 36. But those don't add to make 13 either, and neither do those. And notice how I'm going in order, that way I'm not missing the actual correct numbers that I want to use. We're going to go next to 4 and 9. Oh, that might work, right? Okay, so if those numbers are going to work, they have to have minuses on them, both of them, don't they? Minus 4 minus 9 is equal to minus 13. And then the second test, which is critical to do, is to multiply those two signs and ask yourself whether you're getting this sign. If you are, then they're the correct numbers with which to pull apart the middle term. And so we just do that. Now I like to leave lots of room here when I do this, lots of room between the terms, because you're going to put brackets and you want some room to get them in there. Okay? So the method then is to put brackets around the first two terms and brackets around the last two terms. Now, if this is a minus sign, then this sign has to change once you've put the brackets around, because once you put the brackets around, you're saying multiply me. Multiply me being this little negative sign here, is going to get multiplied through, and we're going to end up with a minus 6 if we were to take the brackets off. And that's not what we have. So this is not the same expression as this one. But if this is a minus, it's very simple. All you do is you change that sign. If it's a plus, you change it to a minus. If it's a minus, you change it to a plus. And just write the change sign over top. So that'll work. Now, common to these two terms is 2x, which will leave us with 3x minus 2. So that's what we do. We look for what's common to these two terms first. Then we're going to put that sign, and we're going to stop for a sec, and we're going to have a look and see what is common to these two terms. Now you can kind of look here and say, well, I know I'm going to get the same contents of the brackets because you've been very careful with the work you did here. And because I'm going to get the same contents, I'm going to say, okay, well, what do I need? And at the same time, what's common? It should be the same thing. I need to take out a 3 in order to get 3x. But as it happens, 3 is what's common as well. And this will always work if you're careful here, okay? And it's going to leave us with 3x minus, notice that's that change sign, minus 2. And then our factors are 2x minus 3. Okay, so one of our factors is right here. And the other factor is whatever is in those brackets. Now if you end up in this line here and the contents of the two brackets aren't the same, you've done something wrong. Okay, something's gone wrong somewhere. Usually it's problem with the factoring of the second bracket. Not always. There's all sorts of little things can go wrong. However, if you're very careful with this step here, with this process, those bracket contents will most likely be the same, okay? All right, so that's a quick recap of factoring trinomials of this type. So today I want to look at a couple of different examples. So here's one here. 2x squared minus 6x plus 4. So the first thing to notice is that there is something in common. We have a common 2. So if we take out the 2, what happens? Well, we get this, don't we? And now it's of the form where a is equal to 1. Because a now is this number right here, which is 1. This 2 is going to come along for the ride, and as we've seen in previous videos, when a is 1, we're going to go directly to our 2 brackets. Okay? Negative 2 minus 1 is minus 3, and negative 2 times negative 1 is 2. Now, let's say you didn't notice that that 2 was common. You would then have this situation, right? Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to multiply those 2, because that's what we do when a isn't 1. And then we look for factors of 8 that add to make 6. Now that's going to be 4 and 2. They both need a minus sign. Minus 4 minus 2 is minus 6. When we multiply those two signs, we're getting this sign. So the correct two numbers to pull apart the middle term, so that's what we're going to do next. That's step 2. Again, this is not the best way to do this, but it is a way to do it. I mean, if you don't notice that that 2 is common, it's not the end of the world. We're going to see another example like that in a minute. Okay, so now we're going to do what we usually do, put our brackets. That minus sign means this sign has to change to its opposite sign. Common here is 2x, which leaves us with x minus 2. Write the sign, look to see what's common, it's 2. Leaves us with x minus 2. And notice the contents of the brackets are the same. But look what happens when I write the other factor, which is this one here. Okay, I'm getting 2x minus 2. All right, and x minus 2, that's the contents of the brackets. Now this isn't wrong, but if you were writing a test and the test said to factor fully, you'd lose half a mark, okay, because this is not fully factored. This here still has a common 2, and that's that 2 that we pulled out when we did it the other way a minute ago. All right, so that has to come out. And then we have what we had before in the previous run-through of this particular quadratic, okay? This is better. It's better to notice when the 2 is common. So, or when there's a common factor, it's better to notice it than to not notice it. Okay, let's have a look at this one. 4x squared minus 18x minus 10. Okay, notice the common 2. All three numbers are divisible by 2, so we're going to factor out the 2, and that will give us that. Now the 2 is going to come along for a ride, and as we pull it through the levels, through the steps, we're going to keep it in brackets so that it doesn't get mixed up with the other stuff. But now all we're going to do is we're going to factor this trinomial, which is of this type, okay? So 2 times 5 is 10. Factors of 10 that add to make 9 are 1 and 10. We're going to put a minus here and a plus here. That'll give us negative 9. And when we multiply those two signs, we're getting this sign. So they're the correct terms to pull apart this middle term, the correct numbers. So this 2 is a factor standing all by itself. So we're just going to leave it in brackets by itself for now. And then we're going to write out the expanded middle term, like so. Okay, so plus 1 minus 10 is minus 9. Now we're going to put brackets around the first two terms, brackets around the last two terms, and because this is a minus, that sign there is going to change. Okay, so we're still going to keep this 2 in brackets all by itself. Common to these two terms is just an x. So we're going to pull out that x, and it's going to leave us with 2x plus 1. We're going to write the minus sign because that just gets copied. Then common to these two terms is a 5. We're going to pull that out, and notice it gives us the same contents of the brackets, okay? 5 times 2x is 10x, or negative 5 times 2x is negative 10x, and negative 5 times 1 is negative 5. Now, the 2 here can now be dropped, it can be dropped out of the brackets. It's not necessary anymore, and we're going to write out the 2 binomial factors that we get here. Okay, notice contents of the brackets are the same, so that's fully factored. Now I want to show you what would happen if you didn't notice that the 2 was common, okay? You would say, okay, that's 40, 4 times 10, and then you would say, okay, 20 and 2 add to make 18, right? Alright, so that's got to be a minus and that's got to be a plus, that's how we get negative 18. When we multiply those two signs, we're getting that sign. So they're the correct numbers with which to pull apart the middle term. So I'm going to write small here so that I can get this all in. So 4x squared minus 20x plus 2x minus 10. Bracket, 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 bracket. We have a common 4x. We're going to take that out. Leaves us with x minus 5 plus, we have a common 2, and it leaves us with x minus 5. Okay? So what we now have is 4x plus 2 and x minus 5 are the two factors. And again, just like in that last example where we chose to factor it without first taking out that common 2, there's a common 2 here, and here it is here, right? So if we take it out, and I'm just going to write the terms in the opposite order now. So I'll just move that one there and this one over here. I've taken the 2 out of that one, and it gives me that. Notice they're exactly the same, okay? But this is easier because the numbers are smaller, and numbers that are smaller are generally easier to work with than numbers that are bigger. Also, if you got to this point and you left the question like that and the test said factor fully, again, you would lose half a mark, most likely. A kinder teacher might not do that, but most likely you'd lose half a mark because it's not fully factored, all right? Okay, we're going to do one more example today. Okay, so as I've talked about in previous videos, when you have a leading negative, it causes problems. We never, ever factor anything with a leading negative, okay? The other problem is that this is not in the right order. So the first thing we're going to do is reorder the terms so that they are in the proper order. We look for anything that's common. There isn't anything here, but we do have that stinky leading negative, which we want to take out. So we take out the leading negative. We don't drop it. It doesn't go away entirely. It's just going to come along for the ride. Okay? So we get that. Now, these two, 36, right? Okay, so what numbers are we going to use? 1 and 36? No, definitely not. 2 and 18? No. 3 and 12? No. 4 and 9? Oh yeah, there we go. Okay. So this has to be a minus and that has to be a plus. That's how we're going to get negative 5. Then we do our sign check. We circle those signs just to show that we've done it. And we say, okay, when we multiply those two signs, are we getting this sign? Yeah, we are. So those are the correct numbers to pull apart that middle term, to pull apart negative 5. So the negative 1 is just going to come along for the ride. And we're going to write 6y squared plus 4y minus 9y minus 6. And again, you could write these two in the opposite order. It doesn't matter. Okay, we're going to put brackets around those two terms, brackets around those two terms. And then we're going to say what's common here. Okay, we're going to leave that negative 1 in brackets. What's common here is 2y, which leaves us with 3y plus 2. We're going to write that sign. We're going to stop. A lot of people, what they do here is they write the sign and immediately write the bracket. And then you got to erase the bracket because you have to take out what's common first. So just when you've written the sign, just stop for a second, have a look and see what's common. We see that it's 3, take out the 3, and it leaves us with, oh, see, I forgot to change the sign. So that minus sign means this sign has to change, right? So when I pull the 3 out, I have 3y plus 2. Okay, now this negative doesn't have to be in brackets anymore. And so we end up with 2y minus 3 and 3y plus 2. And that one's done. Okay, so that's it for today. Thank you very much for watching. Give me a thumbs up if you liked the video and subscribe to the channel. And lots more videos coming up on factoring and solving quadratic equations and all high school math topics. Thanks very much. Until next time. Bye.